Donald Trump has pledged to bring more water to drought-stricken California from Canada.
Millions of gallons of water pouring down from the north with the snow caps in Canada and all pouring down. And they have essentially a very large faucet.
He did sort of suggest water from British Columbia could just be diverted through Oregon and into the Golden State.
It's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But never say never. Never say never.
That will never, ever happen.
Donald Trump just made a demand he wants control of Canada's water. Not some, not a little. He's talking about tapping into one of the world's largest freshwater reserves to solve America's crisis. And Canada's top official, Mark Carney, just gave him a flat-out rejection.
It's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But never say never. Never say never.
That will never, ever happen.
But here's what most people don't understand. This isn't just about water. This is about power. This is about who controls the future.
We have millions of gallons of water pouring down from the north with the snow caps in Canada and all pouring down.
And the stakes are far bigger than anyone's talking about. The Colorado River, a lifeline for millions, no longer reaches the sea. Lake Mead has dropped to historic lows. Farmers are being forced to abandon land they've worked for generations. Cities are preparing for permanent water restrictions. Climate change has transformed what used to be a temporary crisis into a permanent structural reality. When survival is at stake, governments start looking for solutions. And for some American policymakers, the answer doesn't lie within their own borders. It lies just to the north. Canada holds one of the largest freshwater reserves on Earth. Nearly 1/5 of the world's fresh surface water sits within its borders. From the Great Lakes to massive northern river systems, from glaciers that still feed entire ecosystems to endless lakes, Canada possesses what many nations are desperately losing. To some American policymakers, that water looks less like a natural boundary and more like an untapped solution. Recently, Donald Trump reignited a conversation that had been quietly circulating in policy circles. The message was direct. The United States needs access to Canadian water, not as charity, he said, but as a matter of partnership and survival. We have millions of gallons of water pouring down from the north with the snow caps and Canada and all pouring down, and they have essentially a very large faucet, Trump stated.
And they have essentially a very large faucet.
Framing it as a natural resource that should be shared across the border. It was a simple pitch. America has a water crisis. Canada has surplus water. Why not solve both problems through cooperation? In Ottawa, the response came swiftly and without ambiguity. Mark Carney made the position absolutely clear. Canada's water is not a bargaining chip. It is not an export commodity. And it is absolutely not open for negotiation. With that statement, a line was drawn. But this wasn't just about pipelines or emergency relief. It was about something deeper: control, sovereignty. And who decides the fate of a resource that will define the next century of global politics? To understand why Canada said no so firmly, you have to understand Carney's logic. It's not that Canada lacks compassion for America's crisis. It's that Carney understands something critical. Once water enters international trade agreements, it stops being protected. It becomes a commodity. If Canada agrees to export water to the United States today, what happens tomorrow when conditions worsen? What happens when American demand doubles? What happens when other nations, Mexico, India, China, look at that deal and demand the same access? In that scenario, water ceases to be a public trust belonging to Canadians. It becomes a global commodity, priced and pressured like oil, traded like any other resource. And once you sell the first drop, you've set a precedent that's nearly impossible to reverse. Behind closed doors in Washington, proposals are already circulating. These aren't small-scale ideas. They're massive water diversion projects. Pipelines stretching thousands of miles across the continent. Infrastructure designed to permanently link Canadian water systems to American consumption. Supporters call it engineering ambition. Critics call it irreversible damage, and they have a point. Diverting water at that scale doesn't just move a resource. It reshapes entire landscapes. It disrupts wildlife and breeding patterns. It alters regional climate systems in ways that no one can fully predict or control. When you remove billions of gallons of water from a watershed, you're changing ecosystems that evolved over thousands of years. Canadians understand this deeply. To them, the idea isn't just impractical, it's dangerous. Once water leaves a watershed, It rarely returns. Lakes don't refill on command. Rivers don't reset after extraction. Ecosystems that collapse don't recover on political timelines. They take decades, sometimes centuries, to restore, if they can be restored at all. Carney has been consistent in his counterproposal. Real solutions to America's drought don't lie in importing water. They lie in reforming consumption patterns. They lie in better management of existing resources. They lie in conservation. They lie in long-term planning. They lie in America, fixing the problem it created rather than shifting the burden north.